Kopi Dulu, grab your beverage. We're going to give you everything you need to know to develop an effective tarot ritual this week. That and our Sunday morning spread coming right up. Brian Noe with you from Cards of Light with our Sunday morning spread and some talk about tarot rituals this week. If you are new here, thank you for joining me. Please subscribe to the channel here so you'll get all of our latest content when it's published. And if you're a longtime viewer, welcome back. Thank you once again. I really appreciate you being here. Also, if you all wouldn't mind to give this video a thumbs up when you get a chance, I would appreciate that. That'll help us reach more people. And we will have our tarot card reading for the week to come in just a few moments here, but I wanted to talk about tarot ritual. We're revisiting this. I did a video, probably back in 2022 about this, but thought it was a good topic to take up once again. And so this will give you everything that you need to know to develop a ritual for your own practice, and also some other resources that you can check out. I will have a blog post as usual linked in the description box that will have a little bit more detail. But okay, tarot ritual. What do we mean when we say that? What are we even talking about here? We think when we say the word ritual a lot of times, and particularly when it is connected with things like tarot, we think of it in terms of liturgy or ritual magic, something along those lines, where we're invoking something, where we're worshiping something along those lines. And although some practitioners do use the tarot for activities like that, that's not what I'm talking about here. I'm talking about something that's more akin to like a pre-shot routine in basketball, where you are getting into the moment, where you are pulling yourself into a space that is unique from daily life, that is special, that is set aside, and that is most conducive to what you're trying to do when you're reading tarot cards. So essentially, here is the only tarot ritual you will ever need, and it involves 2 steps: shuffle and deal. That's really all you need to do before you begin reading tarot cards. And the reason that is so important is that part of the equation here in reading tarot is that the cards need to be random. You could certainly pick a specific card that you want to meditate on or something like that, that you kind of knew was coming up before you started considering it. But when we're doing a reading, part of what makes it work is the randomness of it, things not being predetermined. So you need to be able to shuffle, and you need to be able to deal the cards, because you can't see them if you don't deal them. That's basically it. But it does help to kind of extend beyond that a little bit and to put yourself in the right frame of mind for what you're doing. It makes the card readings more fun, more effective, and more powerful. So, for instance, if you've ever seen the website Sad Desk Lunch, where people have got kind of leftover food that they're at work and they need some fuel, and so they are sitting at their desk and having this really sad, kind of tired-looking, stale food. That's one approach to a meal. Another approach would be a romantic dinner, where you are maybe being attentive to the place settings and the lighting and things like that. If you're going to have company, you may set a really beautiful table with a special table cloth and all kinds of falderall and that kind of stuff. Just makes things a little more festive or romantic, or whatever mood you're going for. Same way with tarot. So we want to set things up in a way that they are conducive to, first of all, getting our minds quiet, being receptive to our intuition and our creativity. So a lot of us, and you'll notice in my videos, I've got an altar cloth that the cards rest on when I am reading them. I also personally like to include representatives of the elements. So the suits of the minors in tarot all relate to the elements of fire, water, air, and earth. And so I have representatives of each of those elements on the table. I have a candle for fire. I have a bottle of holy water that I have for the element of water. Incense for the element of air. And I usually have a stone or crystal of some sort for the element of earth. It just kind of reminds me of the connection to all of those elements when I'm reading. And I think it kind of just sets the stage a little bit. I also like to do a little bit of, if not formal pranayama, at least some quiet breathing with my eyes closed before I begin a reading, just to get settled into the body and kind of begin to sort of push out the external world and kind of get into my own center so that I can be more receptive and so that I can pay attention to what's going on with the cards. That's not a requirement, but that's something that I like to do. Sometimes I will do a formal ritual of some sort ahead of time, just to kind of clear the space. Sometimes I'll ring a bell to sort of break up the energy in the space a little bit. Lately I have been doing the lesser banishing ritual of the pentagram, which is one that invokes the protection of the archangels. And so your mileage may vary on all of that. Maybe I'll do a video about the banishing ritual at some point. But anyway, sometimes I will do that before I read, sometimes not. Usually if I'm reading for someone else, I will do that ahead of time before we begin. So all of that is just a way of kind of getting our minds in the right mood and helping to open us up to intuition and creativity and that sort of thing. So clears out distractions, clears out any energy that was going on in the room ahead of time, and just kind of helps us get into the moment and really pay attention. Now again, the really essential thing is the shuffle, and it's important that the cards be in random order, and a lot of different ways to shuffle the cards. Some people put them in a pile on the table and mix them around and then pull them back into the deck. Others use exclusively like an overhand shuffle. Some people will tell you never do a riffle shuffle, which is where you're kind of putting the cards in two halves and flipping them together and then kind of bridging them to pull them together. Some people say you should never do that with tarot cards, but I do it. And the reason that I do it, I don't think that it's disrespectful. I don't think that it damages the deck. It is what, if you go to Las Vegas, they'll tell you that's the best way to get the cards in random order. So normally I will do that a certain number of times. Usually for me it's 7 if I think about it, just because 7 is kind of a cool number. And then I'll do some overhand after the riffle shuffle, just to kind of mix things up further, and just because the cards feel good in my hands doing that particular shuffle. So once we've got the cards in random order, then I always cut the cards. If I am reading for someone face to face, I will have them cut the cards. Again, a lot of practitioners will say, oh, you don't ever want anybody else to touch your deck. But that's not something that I fuss about a lot. I'll have them cut the cards. And the main reason to cut is to keep the dealer honest, so that particularly with a querent, if you have them cut the cards, they know that you haven't set them up in advance or something like that. So that's kind of where that tradition comes from. It's just an additional step and an additional part of the routine that for me, kind of helps me say, okay, now I'm in tarot mode here. I will cut usually once to the left using my left hand. And again, this is just something that feels good to me. Some practitioners will say that you use your left hand to cut because it's the one that is closest to your heart. I don't know about any of that, but that's the way that I learned to do it, so that's what I still do. But you don't need to be too fussy with that. If I'm reading a 4-card spread, then I will cut the cards 4 times. So I'll cut once to the left. I will go back to the stack that is on the right and cut it again, and then I will go to the one that's on the left and cut it again. So I've got the 4 cards. So when I do our 4-card readings on Sunday morning here, that's the way that I cut. Lots of different ways to do that, and there's no like right or wrong way to do any of that. And you wouldn't really even need to cut the cards. It's just another nice kind of way to get yourself in the right state of mind. If you kind of do the same things in the same order each time that you read, then I think that can be helpful to get you in the right mood. The other really essential thing, I think, to have a rich, powerful reading is to get your mind quiet, to get still. So in addition to getting the cards in random order before you deal, I always like to put the cards in my hand and sit there with my eyes closed and just take a few soft breaths. Sometimes I'll imagine that I'm breathing energy into the cards. That's just because that feels good to me, but it's not something that's required, certainly. But the main thing is just to get the mind still. And then you deal the cards. Once that's done and the cards are on the table, I like to take just a moment to look at the overall spread before I begin to read. So I'm attentive to things like, how many majors do we have? How many cards of each suit do we have? Are there any cards that kind of relate to each other somehow, like in either numerical sequence or based on the suit that they're in, something along those lines? Just look at the big picture and see if there are kind of any intuitive things that just hit you right between the eyes, right to start with, before you get into the analytical stuff of this card in this position, what does that mean, all of that kind of stuff, and actually reading the cards. Just look at the big picture for a moment, and don't be in a rush. That is basically what I do in terms of ritual in reading the cards. I'd love to hear what you think about this. If you've got questions about it, if you're a reader and have a different process, I'd love to hear that as well. If you take issue with anything that I've said here, I'd love to hear that as well. You can either leave comments here on the video, or you can pop on out to the weblog at atarotjourney.com and find my contact information there. Let's go to the table now for our Sunday morning spread for the week to come. Okay, let's see what the cards have to say to us for this week of October 5th, 2025. As usual, we are using the Thoth deck, and we are looking at the 4 dimensions of our lives: the physical, social, emotional, mental, and spiritual dimensions. And we have 2 pip cards, a court, and a major this time around. And none of these cards from the minors are from the same suit. We've got the 9 of Wands here in the physical dimension. We have the 3 of Discs in the social emotional. We have the Universe, the lone major, here in the mental dimension. And then up here in the spiritual dimension, we have the Knight of Cups. So let's take these one at a time. 9 of Wands. I think we saw this last week, and this has been turning up quite a bit in readings for me lately. This is the card of feeling beleaguered, of facing a lot of challenges, maybe starting to get weary of it all, but ultimately just having the strength and grit to move forward, and to move forward in a way that things resolve to our satisfaction. So there may be some trials and tribulations coming this week But ultimately, if we hang in there, we remember we're still here. We always have options as long as we are still chipping away at things. And so if we remember that and we push on through, we do have the resources to eventually get to where we need to go. Coming as this does in the physical dimension of our lives. I've got the sense that this is a health issue for somebody, and feeling pretty daunted at the moment. It may be an issue that is not necessarily life-threatening, but maybe worrisome or troublesome in some way, and just kind of feeling at our wits' end with it. There should be some resolution this week, but that will depend on us continuing to do what we can to bring it to resolution. So overall, let's kind of take it easy this week. Maybe get out for some short, easy walks and that sort of thing if the weather is conducive to that outside. But let's not overdo. Let's just keep pushing slow and steady this week, and that will be to our benefit. And whether we're talking about physical health or whether we are talking about something else in that dimension of our lives, like financial matters or something, let's use that same advice this week. Let's keep pushing, but not do anything rash or crazy. Okay, that's the way I would see that one. I'd love to hear if this is resonating with anybody. Okay, we've got the Three of Discs over here in the social emotional dimension, and this is styled Works in the Thoth deck. This is the card of collaboration and beginning new projects, perhaps grand projects sometimes, perhaps not. I would say coming as this does in the social emotional dimension of our lives, we need to be attentive if we're working on projects with others this week, to be attentive to the relationships and not just the immediate goals. Not just let's get stuff done, but let's work together effectively. And whether that is a work project or something at home, or even recreational activities, we really need to put the emphasis on relationships and teamwork and working with others, and less on just getting things done as quickly and efficiently in the short term as we can. That's the way I would see this one. Okay, up here in the mental dimension, we have the universe. And this is the last of the majors where everything gets summed up and we are about ready to move back to the zero card. So as we're going through this cycle, this is the last one we reach before we spin back around to the Fool. And it is all of the things, one big thing that encompasses all of the things. There's a great phrase in Hindi, sub-ek, it means all one. And it is easy to get lost in our own individual perspectives and in the pieces of things, as opposed to looking at the big picture. This calls us this week in the mental dimension to step back and look at the big thing and not just focusing on the parts. We need to really bring in some holistic thinking this week. And as mentioned so many times on this program, one of the best ways to do that is to get our minds still through pranayama, through spiritual practice, through meditation. Get ourselves centered in the body and calm the endless fluctuations in our mind. And then we can see things as they really are. We can see the big picture and how everything is moving together as it should. So I would just encourage us all this week to take some extra time to sit still and to do our best to quiet our minds and keep things in perspective as as this week unfolds. Okay, up here in the spiritual dimension, we have the Knight of Cups. And this guy, these court cards are always kind of challenging. Well, not always, but usually kind of challenging to interpret, and particularly this card in the spiritual dimension. This character is kind of wears his heart on his sleeve, and sometimes we'll say deep down he's shallow. Not necessarily an example of what we would want to aspire to in the spiritual dimension. When we're looking at our legacy, we're looking at the meaning of our lives, and trying to keep first things first in our lives. I would say the message this card brings, coming as it does in the spiritual dimension, is to be truly open-hearted this week, to not just be showing other people, making demonstrations of being open-hearted, but to truly open our hearts, to allow ourselves to be vulnerable with others. This kind of reinforces what we're getting here with this Three of Discs. It's about relationships, and with this Universe card, it's about the big picture of things. So I would say altogether the main message from the cards this week is keep on pushing, focus on relationships, focus on the big picture, the long term, the things that really matter in the long term, and not so much just on flashiness and getting quick results any which way. We need to be true to the deepest part of ourselves this week, and we need to get quiet and step back and look at the big picture in order to do that. That is the way that I would see these. Well, there we have it. I hope that is helpful and that you have a beautiful week to come. Thank you for joining me once again this week. We will be back again soon. And in the meantime, as always, I wish you peace. Take care of yourself.